Welcome to Squatch-D TV, where the truth is first before all else. Join your hosts, veteran investigator, TV personality, and author Steve Kulls, and from the Kentucky Bigfoot Research Project and the Kentucky Fried Fixes channel, Chris Bennett. Sit back and prepare to take yourself on a journey with the longest-running Bigfoot podcast, Squatch-D TV. Here are your hosts, Steve and Chris.
Poof, we're doing a little something different tonight, as you can see.
Wow.
How are you, Squatch-D TV? Good evening, cyberspace. Welcome to this edition for June 1st, 2025. I'm your host, your guide, the Squatch Detective, Steve Kulls, along with, am I looking the right way?
Nope.
What's going
I'm not, am I? Along with my co-host, Mr. Chris Bennett. What's up, Chris? I'm looking over here.
Kind of weird. Yeah, normally you're way up there somewhere, but
Yeah, I'm not looking down at these guys.
I'll have to get used to it. Oh man, but,
We're going to have to play tag, right? Go! Now you're supposed to hit him. And No, the other way. There we go. There we go. And now you bring it that way. That way.
okay.
We just did the internet wave pretty poorly, but we did it.
Yeah, right.
Well, folks, we got a heck of a show for you. Obviously, we're going to do the New Jersey Bigfoot Research Roundtable. Of course, we got representatives of the New Jersey BFRO on board here. Even myself as a BFRO, the odd man out is Chris.
We won't hold that.
Representing the South.
So we all know the secret handshake. Chris does not. So anyway, let's do our roll call real quick tonight.
Oh yeah.
And then we'll get right on with the program because I'm sure we got a lot to talk about, and just a couple hours goes by fast. And so here we go. First in tonight was Pat Collins, who I saw earlier today. There'll be stuff going to the members area about our little outing with me, Pat, Brian Goslin, and a whole brand new YouTube channel that I happened to meet today. We're going to be doing some collabs with them. Going to be a good time. Walter Kroll, what's happening? Karen Fisher in the house. Pete H, what's going on? Of course, we know Mike Patrick. He's right there.
Yeah, hey Mike.
Grant Rasha in the house. Don Gamau Jr., Sasquatch Research Maine. What's going on? Sharon over there from Belgium. I know she kind of says, have a great show, but she lurks for a little while. Jay Carey, what's going on, brother?
Hey.
We already said Walter Kroll. Mitch Hargrove, what's going on? Mitch, Roy Longley. And he's going to catch us a little bit later on.
Good.
Grasshopper is in the house.
Grasshopper?
Mick is in as well. The Susie Monster, what's going on?
Susie Monster.
Ron Meldrum, I'm here. We can start now. Mike Young, what's going on, Mike?
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
Jen, our bouncer. Jen, what's going on? I'm sure our office assistant Baron is close nearby.
Oh, yeah.
Mike Tinsley, what's going on, Mike? He was just on last week. What else we got going on here?
I got lost.
Boris Kahn is here. Boris Kahn traveling with Jim, my good buddy Jim Lansing. Lori Gibbs, what's happening?
Hey, Lord.
Beatron. Arthur Watch is here. What else? Jeff D. Smith, what's going on, Jeff D?
Hey, welcome.
I'm waiting for the infamous one. You know who I'm talking. Mike Stetton is here. Mike is here. Hello, Mike. Mike Ann, Tactical Bigfoot Research in the house as well.
What's going on, Mike?
Another one of our bouncers, too. Mrs. Trackway, Deb, what's going on?
Yeah.
Who the hell was Eric Spinner? Oh, that's right. He's right there.
Hey, Eric. How you doing, man?
And Grant Rasha. Of course, Grant's in there, and he's putting up there about the Whitehall Sasquatch Festival.
Woo! All right, cool. Coming up September 27th.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Glad he didn't get lost. They enjoy the outdoors, though. You know, you get a Yorkie outside, they're like, man, 9-0. They're running 9-0.
Well, he's not a Yorkie. Baron is not a Yorkie.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
He is a small dog. I really don't know what kind of pooch he is, but
Shih Tzu or a
no, I got a Shih Tzu. He looks more like some sort of terrier, short-haired terrier.
a rat terrier.
Mick said, "Let's get the show on the road. I'm missing a rerun of Gilligan's Island."
Hey, Mick.
Okay, so all right, we're gonna just go around the table. We'll start with Jacob, then we'll go to Mike, and then we'll go to Eric and Heather. And just explain who you are, how you got into this nutty business of Bigfoot research, and then just tag out to your.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, my name's Jacob Korbel. I always had a fascination with the subject ever since I was a kid, but I was told stories by my grandma growing up, and I really got into the subject when I had an experience in 2018 that kind of like pushed me in that direction of researching the subject. And ever since then, I've had experiences out in the woods that certainly has totally changed my vision of the subject. I'm a New Jersey BFRO researcher and investigator, and soon to be a co-organizer of expeditions and stuff. So that's a little bit about me. How about you, Mike?
Hey, Dave. Thanks, Jacob. Hey, everybody. So my name is Mike Patrick. Like Jacob, I'm a Bigfoot researcher, and I got into it, as a kid watching the $6 Million Man episode with the Bigfoot, and it intrigued me. And I asked my dad about it, and I said, "What is that?" My dad's like, "Oh, they call it a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch. It's something that they found, in California." And my dad was very skeptical about it, but for me as a kid, I'm like, "Tell me more. What do you mean? Is it real?" My dad's like, "No, it's not real. It's all baloney." I'm like, "Oh. Okay, well, all right." So as I got older, I started seeing more things on it in books. And then life took over. And then back in probably 2012, I was watching the Bigfoot shows on TV with Matt Moneymaker and Bobo. And that's where I saw this guy next to me on TV, Eric. And I was like, "Oh,
you're pointing the wrong way."
I'm pointing this way because he's on my right. Oh, that way? Okay.
Yeah, it's like looking in a mirror. Isn't it weird?
My camera's pointing. I don't know. So anyway, I saw Eric on TV talking about it. I'm like, wait a minute.
We would make terrible weathermen, wouldn't we?
It's going to snow over here. And I didn't know that the BFR was a New Jersey filming. I'm like, oh my God, this is great, and it really, it piqued my interest even more. And I got into it and started buying books on the subject and looking at the Patterson-Gimlin film and what was out there, and joining Facebook, and had the privilege to join Eric's 2015 BFRO expedition. And, as a nobody, I didn't know really anything, what thermal, what's thermal, and Eric and his team taught us. We learned a lot. I learned a lot. I know that about researching and tracking and casting, and did a demo. And I joined again Eric's expedition in 2022, and had a wonderful time. A great time. And Eric and I started talking, became friends, and then I started doing a lot of research on my own in New Jersey in the Pine Barrens, and then started talking to Eric, saying, "Hey, can I become a BFRO investigator?" And he was like, "Sure." We sat down, have a conversation, and Eric was like, "But one thing, don't ever get me upset." I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "That's a demerit, and you get 2 demerits, you're gone." But that's how I started out. And like Jacob, I'm one of the newest New Jersey BFRO members, and I'm really enjoying my time. I'm learning a lot, Stephen, in the BFRO, the whole flats system, and just looking through that just blows my mind. But I really enjoy getting out there and doing this research. I look at it from a technology and scientific standpoint, where I try to look outside the box. I didn't believe in orbs and UFOs and a while ago, and I'm like, now my mindset has totally changed. So So I'll pass it over to Eric.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, good evening. And
About time we got you on the show here, Eric.
Chris. Well, hey, it was great meeting you at Whitehall.
Same here.
And my bride Heather is joining us tonight. But yeah, I got into this as a result of the movie that you can see behind me on my, I guess your left. I don't know.
The Sasquatch. That's Chris's movie right there.
Number one favorite. Yeah.
That's the one that did it for me. I was like 10 years old. My dad took me to the theater to see it. And that arm coming through the window, with the Ape Canyon recreation scared the crap out of me. I didn't sleep for about a month. And, I was on Long Island at the time. And, there's no Bigfoot where I was, but I didn't know that. So we moved down here to New Jersey and to the Pine Barrens, and we were hanging out in the pole lines and in the woods, drinking beer and having keg parties. Never gave it a thought, you know what I mean? But then I guess 2006 is when I went online and I found the BFRO's website and the Blue Board, and I started to do some research, armchair research, we call that. And I started talking with other investigators and researchers from other parts of the country. And then 2008, I actually attended my first BFRO expedition in northwestern Pennsylvania. We call that what do we call that, Heather? The
Pacific Northeast.
The PNW, the Pennsylvania Northwest. Thank you. All right. This is just like last year when we went to this convention that we're going to be going to next week for the Cryptid Festival in New Jersey. We had just gotten back from Florida. Heather and I just got back yesterday again, so I'm a little brain dead from the time difference. And so I was on my first expedition, and I actually we stayed an extra night. We had some activity, learned a lot. I had Todd Prescott from Ontario as my mentor, and we had a great time. We actually stayed an extra night, and he and I spent an extra night at a campsite where they had a thermal sighting 2 nights earlier. And so I actually wound up having a Squatch come up to my tent that morning, pressing into the tent fabric right over my head. It's a great story. And that's what really did it for me. That gave me the Bigfoot bug. And then I went to British Columbia the next year. And I've just been knees deep ever since, you know what I mean? In 2009, became an investigator with the BFRO. And then in 2014, Matt made me an organizer as well. So we've done probably a couple of dozen expeditions here in the Pine Barrens, Pennsylvania, New York, and just met a ton of great people, had a lot of fun, get to travel around and do what we love to do. And as a result, started Squatch Talks podcast a few years ago. And hopefully we're entertaining some people on, the YouTube thing and various platforms near you. But this is, by day, I'm a nutritionist and health food store owner. And by night, I'm a Bigfoot researcher. So, Heather, do you want to tell them how we met real quick? Or
Sure. Eric was my mom's nutritionist, so I met him through her. But I had a really big crush on him, and we started talking online and stuff. And I said one night, I was like, Mr. Spinner, can I come over and watch Finding Bigfoot with you? And I did. And we've been together for 12 years now.
That was the wrong sound effect.
Yeah, well,
this is what I meant to play.
We never found Bigfoot that night, I don't think.
But not only did she come over to find Bigfoot, but she was on Finding Bigfoot twice. So that was.
Oh, there you go. Yep.
Huh? Yeah, but that's pretty much us.
Yeah, I mean, God, I was behind the scenes of a couple episodes.
We were too.
Yeah, I'm in Finding Bigfoot for a brief second. You see the back of my head. Anyway, but it was kind of a surreal moment because they did the Whitehall town hall meeting, and I'm just kind of sitting there, and I saw Matt, and I saw Bobo first, and Bobo's like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" We end up chit chatting a little bit, and I go wandering. I take the seat. I got my crew there with me, and I'm just minding my own business, and all of a sudden I see Matt look out the curtain because he's hiding behind the curtain. He goes, "Hey, is Steve Kulls out here?" I'm like, so I'm gone for an hour. Everybody's wondering, and everybody's looking at me like, "Who the hell is this guy?"
Yeah.
It was really fun because I helped them out logistically with a couple episodes. I helped their production team with, so it was a lot of fun times. And a lot of people down that show, but I explained to them that they really did their best with what they could do. that they were under constant time constraints and stuff. And because I remember, oh, we got mom, guys, we got to go. And I remember the production crew telling them, they're like, okay, we got to go. So, but they did give it a good college run, and it was a very entertaining. And if one thing it did, and I know a lot of people say, well, they made it look like tree knocking and yelling as all Bigfoot research is. True, but that's the exciting part of the aspect of the show. It's, where you can actually show something. But one thing it did was it made Bigfoot not a 4-letter word.
That's right.
And that's the huge thing. It opened up people to talk about the Bigfoot, having encounters, having sightings, having their experiences. So I think that was the huge positiveness about the whole thing.
Absolutely. Bobo did my recreation on my road crossing encounter.
Right.
And it was quite fun to do that with him. Of course, they edited that out of the episode. So the only thing you see of me is in the town hall meeting where I told a little bit about what happened, right? So I got my 15 seconds of fame. But when it came time for him to do the recreation and run out in front of my vehicle at 50 miles an hour, I said, "You're going to run out in front of my car, right?" He says, "That ain't happening."
Yeah, no.
But he did make a comment about Heather also.
No, I was standing. I said the cops pulled up. And they were wondering what we were doing, and I'm standing there with Bobes, and I was like, I'm just gonna stand here with you and look innocent. And he goes, "No, you're not. You look like a walking felony."
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Oh man.
Love you, Bobes.
That was 10 years ago, so she was a little younger,
Yeah, I was young. I was 24, so yeah.
So anyway, we had a lot of fun, though, and we helped the producers out, as you were just saying, and took them to our areas, gave them some witnesses to talk to, and it was a great time. It was a lot of fun. And so then we got to go back the following year and do the North Jersey episode with them. And they rolled out the red carpet for us. The producers remembered us and everything, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's about it. We did a couple of those, and then, the rest is history.
So, out of the 4 of you, how many people have had, and I know at least a few hands, or how many have had an actual sighting? Just one. So
Twice.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So I'll let Eric, if you want to explain your sightings, that would be awesome.
Okay. Well, I mentioned briefly that first experience where I didn't actually see anything but a silhouette when this individual came to my tent at 4:45 in the morning and pressed its hand over my head. It crouched down, took a deep breath into it, and then pressed its hand in over my head. And I clicked my radio 3 times real fast to get Todd's attention, who was 50 feet across the campsite from me. Nothing. So then a truck or a vehicle came around the 90-degree turn. This thing stood up and tore through camp. You can hear it running bipedally out of the campsite into the brush. And then I clicked my radio 3 more times to get Todd's attention. Nothing. And then I heard what sounded like equipment starting out. I did see a silhouette. I'm saying that's what I mean as far as a visual with that one. It was just a silhouette with the moon's, still up and the sun's just about to come up. Anyway, I was terrified. My heart was pounding in my chest. This is my first time basically camping, being from New York. And so it tore out. And then finally Todd came on the radio and said, "Are you all right over there?" I said, "Were you walking around outside my tent?" He says, "No, I wasn't walking around outside your tent." And I explained what happened. And then I quickly passed out from the adrenaline, I think. And he told me he did come back into camp through the center again, and he tried to get his monopad out with the therm on there. He had an XP 300, I think. But he couldn't get it over the dome of the tent to get visual on it. But we both had digital recorders going. Neither one of us had anything after we got home and reviewed the footage, the audio. Nothing as far as the footfalls or anything like that. But I could hear as well as feel the footfalls approaching me, the footsteps. So that was pretty scary as well. So that reminds me of like that movie, what's it called? With Bobcat Goldthwait.
Oh, Willow Creek,
where the two are in the tent, remember?
Yep.
Sounds like Bob's howling outside and the branches snapping. That really gives me PTSD, let me tell you. So the following year, I said I went to BC, and we were there, and we had activity every night. Let me tell you, from wood knocks that sounded like artillery shells going off. We had sticks thrown at us. I got hit with a rock right here. I mean, it was amazing. I found a 20-inch print. On the final night, again, I stayed over an extra day. And Sunday morning, I went down to the creek bottom by the waterfall to do some meditation and prayer. And I look up and I see a head and shoulders of an auburn colored individual, looking down at me over the rocks and the brush around it. I said, that wasn't there a moment ago. So I had a camera in my left hand, and I lifted it up and I zoomed in and I took a picture. And I remembered somebody saying, if you turn around and take a picture over your shoulder, you might get them standing up and walking away. So I attempted to do that. Of course, when I turned back around, it was gone.
Of course.
Myself, for not paying more attention to it. I did think I saw a second individual further up on the waterfall. This one was all black, peeking out from a big, which was pretty interesting. I took a comparison photo, of course, and I went back up to base camp, and the organizer was there, and I showed Rob the picture on his laptop, and he says, "I think you saw a Sasquatch." So that was my first brief sighting. Okay, just the head and shoulders, but you can see the blurry photo that I took, and then the comparison photo.
Well, it's great. It's great you had the wherewithal to grab your camera.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's just like you're supposed to always have it, right? But they don't stand there and pose for you, obviously.
No.
You know what I mean? So the audio is definitely something I rely on heavily. But
you got to get over that. Pardon the French, folks. Oh shit factor when you like.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not thinking about the camera. I'm thinking about there it is.
Your brain is trying to compute it because you know what it looks like. You've never seen one in person.
Right.
You're shocked.
Yeah. Well, again, it was just so strange. I had just gotten done meditating and saying my affirmations, and I look up and it's there. You know what I mean? And every night, like I said, we had something going on. Even during the day, this was an active area. Mm-hmm. So when I got back to New Jersey, again, that's when I started to do investigations with the BFRO. I did a lot of solo hikes in the Pine Barrens at that time, just to get out of my head. I was going through a separation and a divorce. Being away from my kids, it helped to keep me sane, and it's how I get my serenity. I was out there one day, and it was Thanksgiving. It had snowed overnight, so there was a light dusting of snow on the ground. I went out to look for tracks, and so I did some kind of male display. I urinated on a tree, and then I did 3 knocks on this stump.
And tell him what you said.
Well, what did I say?
Whose territory is it now, Squatches?
That's just our standard.
Oh, no.
So behind me on the right comes a growl so loud it vibrated my right ear. And I turned and I went, whoa.
Oh, and you know what that means in Bigfoot talk, right?
What?
Round 1.
And then it growled again. And I went, whoa. Round 2. And then it growled again. And I said, and all I had in my hand was a child's baseball bat, right? And I'm thinking, I'm 3 miles from my car, no other defense aside from that. I said, hello, how are you? Again, I can't see it. I mean, this is in November. The leaves are off the trees. The sheep sorrel has very little, vegetation. I can't see where this is coming from, but I could, like I said, feel it as well as hear it. Okay. So I said, how are you? And then I said, does this mean you don't want me here? I'm like, okay, I'm going. And I turned, I went back over the railroad tracks, and I got outside, waved goodbye, and went back over to the trail I came in on. And I started hiking back up to my car. And I had to go through a choke point at about halfway back. And that's where I expected it to kind of grab me and pull me into the woods, And so I get through there, no problem. And then I see a game trail further up on my right, and it's going through mountain laurels. Oh, they love mountain laurels. So, of course, I hike through the mountain laurel. I come up to a clearing, and there's a line of tracks in the snow, tightrope fashion. And at the end of this clearing, there was an arch, there was an X tree structure, and a tree snapped off about 5 inches thick in diameter, and about 5 foot off the ground. And I said, wow, this is a great place to put my trail camera. So I had apples with me. I had a can of Alpo dog food, the dog stew with a pull-off can. Yeah. I put that right in the top of the tree. I put out the apples. I set up my game camera, and I went back to my car. And never got anything on the camera, of course. But then this was in November. In March, I was with a friend of mine who researched Jersey Devil. Somebody in the chat wanted me to say Jersey Devil. And she was a researcher.
The Jersey Devil.
Devil. But I was, of course, Bigfoot, so I didn't like to go out at night by myself, so I brought her along, and we were out on St. Patty's Day, March 17th, 2010.
Yeah, I brought her along because I can run faster.
Exactly, that's what I always say. I always bring somebody I can run faster than. And so nothing was happening. It was misty and cold and drizzly. So around 12:30, we wrapped it up. We're heading back home. We just crossed over the road into civilization, and we're just talking about music, nothing specifically about Bigfoot or anything. And this individual tore out of a development. There's a trail that comes from the development, lined on both sides by chain link fence. It tore out about 30 miles an hour, and I got on my brakes. She had a bottle of water between her legs. She slid forward. The water sprayed all over. She went, "What the F was that?" I went, "Deer?" She goes, "No, it wasn't." And I mean, this thing running on two legs, using its arms to propel itself, hunched over, was probably 3.5 to 4 feet, above the hood of my car. And it never broke stride, but it kind of looked at us just as it was in our headlights, like almost like an oh shit type of look on its face. Kept going. I wound up turning around. There was a dead deer in the middle of the road further up. I turned around to come back and look for any track impressions, to also hear if I could hear anything crashing through the brush, but I couldn't hear anything or find anything because it was hard packed soil. But the trajectory it was running on, it would have gone through an actual customer of mine's yard, which borders the high tension pole lines, okay, which is like a squat highway.
Yep.
Right.
Path of least resistance. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that was my road crossing encounter that was not aired on Finding Bigfoot, South Jersey Sasquatch.
And those pole lines run to an area where there's another sighting that we had followed up on too.
Same
trackway,
And one that Jacob also investigated was along the same pole line. So So it's like I said, it's being in the right place at the right time. The following night, actually, a customer's daughter-in-law was going the same path. Had it happened to her, same situation. And a year later, another woman going in the opposite direction had a crossing at the same spot.
Yep.
So people have said to me, "Oh, you should just set up a trail camera there."
There's also a really funny video out there in the same spot that just happened to Eric, and there's a guy out there with the cops.
Oh yeah.
And talking about donuts. Jake showed it to us. It's hysterical.
This was the
New Jersey donut guy.
This was a real Jersey Italian guy talking about meatball sandwiches.
In the spot where he had his road crossing, it's hysterical. So if you want to see where it happened, Google that.
Maybe Bigfoot ran out in front of him, and that's what made him crash his Corvette.
You want this meatballs? We got a meatball grinder here, and you know what? Forget about it.
But those are my two sightings, visual ones. They happen like that. You know what I mean? But I know.
And for folks who don't know, I'm entitled to poke fun at Jersey all I want because I was born there. Damn it!
There you go.
There you go.
That's good. Yeah.
I never saw Bigfoot, but I was with Mike and potentially saw an arm.
Yeah, that was crazy. That one.
I was pissed off at his ex-wife. I'm out there talking to Michael. I'm like having a bad day, right? And I'm like not thinking about Bigfoot. I could give two craps. I look up and I see this reddish brown arm come out from behind the tree, like it was like this, and then go like this really fast. It was huge. I ripped Michael's shirt. I'm like, look, and then it was gone because you're not supposed to point at it. But in the moment you just react.
Right.
And then it's the same expedition. We found all these tracks.
Yeah.
Behind us, we have
cool.
Track evidence.
unreal.
Bring some fun.
That's what I was telling you in the last podcast, Steve, where I mentioned that Eric, we casted these prints. That's the prints we casted.
Oh, Eric, yes, Steve, can you make Eric?
I'm working on it.
Yeah.
If you hold Patty's foot up to this footprint, it's like the same footprint, except this is like leaves and stuff in it.
Here, hold that, Heather. The camera. That's the second one. That's the one I found.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
one of my attendees called me down at like 9 a.m. to say they found an impression, and this was the first one. Look how deep that is. Okay.
Oh yeah.
But this one was the first one we found, and it was filled with water because it had rained overnight, and so it was nobody else around. We had trail cameras set up down by the bridge, so there was no activity of anybody putting in kayaks or canoes. We checked that afterwards. Boy Scouts had shown up, but they were just setting up their camp at the time. So he had found this impression in the right along the creek. As I'm looking at it, thinking it would be a misidentification, I turned to my left, and under the bush is the one that Heather's holding. Okay. So yeah, that was pretty crazy, and I was like, "Wow, this is cool." I was going to do a track.
So can you both hold them up vertically?
Vertically like this?
Like that? Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. I could see the toes. Yeah.
And if you notice, this one I'm missing the big toe on. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you notice that one is a
right foot and one's a left foot.
But I have Patty's cast right here.
Yeah, and the coolest thing is, I showed these to Dr. Meldrum, right, when we interviewed Jeff, and here's Patty's cast.
Yep, I have one of those too in the car. Yep.
This is the recast, of course.
Right.
I got this from Cliff. But if you hold them together, I mean, they're almost identical in thickness.
Right. Yeah.
Look at the length, and again, all I'm missing is the big toe, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if there was like a rock on the other one, which is so deep where it kind of has that bulge. I wonder if there was a rock there at one time. And
no, you know what happened? Here's what I think. Because it was right by the bridge. Okay, the forestry road was going past there. I think she came down to avoid detection by a passing motorist. You notice I say she, because the reason I say that, it's about 14 and a half inches, and we found 18 juvenile impressions across the creek. Okay, and I have 5 of them cast behind me as well.
Yeah.
And the reason I say she is because she came down and slid at the bottom of the bank there, and that's the deeper one.
Gotcha.
Stepped with the other foot, with the left foot, by the bush and crouched down probably.
Oh, that would make more. Yeah, that would make more sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, that would have compacted that track a whole lot deeper. All the weight coming down on one foot. Yeah.
That was
Eric, can we see one of the juvenile prints?
Absolutely.
That was not easy to cast either because it was gross.
Where did this come from? Oh, this is
Yeah, remember when these prints were down by the river where these were taken, and you can see the sets, man, like a step, another.
Well, that's a little.
Well, we've got a few of them. This is one.
Oh, hang on, I got to get you back in the solo setting.
Huh.
There we go.
And that's flat. There's no. That's,
Right. Yeah.
There's no transverse arch on any of these.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. This is. Look at the depth of this one.
That was
Looks like a lot of mud.
A lot of mud.
Yeah.
Yes.
The one that Heather's holding is really distinct, though. I mean, you can see the definite shape outline. You can see the outline of the toes.
And then these were found. These were found actually on the same area, okay, but like 2000, what was it, 22, 21, April of 21.
21, I think.
Right.
And again, could they be humans? Absolutely, but the circumstances surrounding it is what makes me feel like they're legit.
I just
well, not knowing the area though, there's probably a lot of substrate in the ground. A lot of broken sticks and leaves and rocks. Yeah. Who in the hell would be walking barefoot back there?
Right.
No. Some of the places we found tracks.
And here's the one that I made a recast, okay, for a friend of mine. He wanted to sell some casts in Wisconsin. So I added the big toe to the Pine Barrens version, okay? And when I showed Jeff, when we were doing the interview with Jeff, I showed him this one. He says, wait a minute. I don't recall there being a big toe in there. Right. You're good. I'm not trying to mess with you. I just wanted to see, what did you think of these? It looks really good, actually. But this is a recast of the recast.
We're just trying to get size, proportions, and all, trying to make it look so we can match it up with other ones we find and stuff.
And of course, I've got some from Dr. Meldrum and from Washington, from Walla Walla, Washington behind me. There's 3 of those as well.
I've got one of the Walla Walla, Washington ones from Cliff, and I got the Patterson Gimlin recast from Dr. Meldrum.
That's funny. I reversed it. I got the one from Cliff and the one from Jeff.
So most of them are like right foot, though. Like, do they have left foot prints too?
Of course.
Did they find that?
Of course they did.
Well, let's take a look at that one.
This is the Walla Walla, okay? And on the back, of course, it says to Eric from Jeff Meldrum. And it's funny as hell because Heather bought me this as a gift, right? Mm-hmm. I was making, like I said, some molds so that we could do track demos easier on my expeditions, right? We had the wrong material sent to us. They sent us rubber instead of silicone. Oh, and we didn't use a release agent. So as I was pressing this down into the clay, it cracked right in the middle. Mm. I'm like, oh crap. So then when it came time to take it out of this rubber material, it broke into like 15 pieces.
Oh no.
So here's a good excuse to call Jeff, right? So I called Jeff and I asked him, I said, hey Jeff, you know that cast I got from you? It cracked. I said, what's the best glue to use? And he says, Elmer's. I said, not Gorilla Glue?
Gorilla Glue.
I said, Gorilla Glue, right?
Oh, no.
And then while I had him on the phone, I'm like, hey, I do this little podcast. I said, would you mind being a guest? He says, sure. Send me a couple of dates. And he was very gracious. So.
Yes, yeah, he is awesome. We had him on
We'll see Jeff next week. We'll see him on Saturday. This upcoming week.
When the heck am I seeing him? I'm not sure when I'm seeing him this year. At some point, I think the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Camping Adventure. I'm seeing him down in.
Let me get
that's in August.
Let me get some of these chat comments here before we get too far ahead.
Put them right up there, Chris.
Back when Eric was talking about leaving the apples and stuff out, Grant Rasha said you need to add peanut butter to the apples. That's interesting. I mean, it works for me.
Actually.
You know what you need to add? Actually, you know what you need to add to the apples?
No, usually what I do is I tie Heather naked to the tree and lather her with peanut butter.
Wow.
I knew you were going to say that.
I wouldn't have told that. Eric, I wouldn't have told
that. Wait, is this
no, actually, try this. Get some chocolate X-Lax.
Oh my God.
Melt it down and then put it into the apples. And whatever animal gets those apples going to crap everywhere.
Then I'll piss them off, Steve. I don't want to be the one that they
find. No, yeah. He's coming for you. That's right.
Yeah. I do have eDNA kits, though.
You ain't picking that scat up.
We have an eDNA scientist on our team and also a couple of anthropologists. So now with Mike on board, we have an IT guy as well and an expert. So we got a lot of scientific ways of knowing about this research. You know what I mean? So that's what makes it really cool.
And Lori Gibbs says, Steve or Chris, gift me. They said Jersey Devil. I don't know.
Joyzy Devil.
Joyzy Devil.
Joyzy Devil.
Joyzy.
Okay, Eric Spinner, say Jersey.
I don't know,
Devil.
Lori. I don't know what that means, but I can absolve you. Okay,
give me a
I absolve you. I absolve you.
Maybe they're doing a drinking game, Chris, where every time I say Jersey Devil, they have to take a shot.
Oh, I got you.
Every time they say Jersey Devil?
Jersey Devil.
Don Gomel Jr.
I knew it. That's it.
Wait. Hold on.
Yo, get me a Snapple.
All right.
Laura Gibbs said donuts are their fave. Well,
everybody's fave. I got a story about some apple cider donuts.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure they... let's hear it.
Well, we were on a Pennsylvania expedition. No, this was Southern New York State. Southern New York State.
I wasn't there.
She wouldn't, yeah. But at the base camp where we were at, we did have some activity. Again, rocks and sticks being thrown. I'm trying to think because we had two of them back to back, so I get them sometimes jumbled. But at this particular one, I had a trail camera set up right at a Y of the trail, which led back to base camp. Okay.
Sure.
And I hung apples in the tree, organic apples, opposite the trail from the tree that I had the camera in. And I had apple cider donuts hanging on the tree about 7 feet off the ground. So anyway, there were two apples in the tree also where the camera was. Everything got wrapped up. I'm heading home. The organizer's phone, because I co-organized that with my friend Brian, his phone had fallen in the lake the day before, so his phone was shot. And that's what it was. That night, we had a thermal sighting on the first water night op that I got to do. I was the captain of the boat. I had 3 LEOs with me, and we had my fireman's therm, which didn't have recording capability, but I didn't want to.
Yeah, they don't do that.
I didn't want to, take a chance on getting some good gear messed up if we sank, you know what I mean? But we had a 2.5 minute sighting with therm of an individual on the bank doing like the tree peeking thing, going like this. You could see the arms and the legs. It glided up this hill after a couple of minutes. It glided up a 45-degree hill, silent. Okay. And then at the top, the person holding the therm says, "I lost him." And then 30 seconds later, you hear this branch snap, crack. And Patty turns and looks at me and says, "Did you hear that?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I did record the audio. I have it on audio, but of course, no visual. So that was the excitement for this expedition, though. You know what I mean? So anyway, I get home, I hook back up with Heather, and I realized I left both of my trail cameras in New York. So
oops.
Monday, I'm like, "Hey, I'm off on days. You want to take a ride to New York?" So we go back up, right? Meet up with Brian and go to base camp. I get the one from the base camp kitchen area. I get the other one from the trail. All the apples are gone. All the donuts are gone. There's no morsels on the ground or anything like a possum or something ate them. You know what I mean? I am so excited. The only 2 apples that didn't get taken were the ones in the tree that the camera was mounted on. Okay. So we get home later that day. I go to put them in my computer to look at them, right? I see the deer, of course, that came around the base camp kitchen area. I go to put it in the other SD card, thinking this has got to be the best photographic image ever, right? There's nothing on the SD card. Not even a picture of me setting it up and turning it on. This is like a brand new, what's the camera?
I just got it.
Bushnell,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Good trail camera. Yeah. I felt like I got kicked in the gut.
Mm-hmm.
And literally nothing on there. I was like, I know what happened. The Bigfoot took out the SD card, looked at the pictures, and said, "This one's blurry. This one's blurry. This one's not blurry. We got to delete them all."
Hey, Eric, Patty's in the chat too. Just so you know.
Hey, Patty.
Hey.
Love you.
Hey, Daddy.
Our good luck charm.
Yep, sure
So
is.
one of the cameras that I have been using that I really like these are spy points. And what they'll do is I set them on video. The batteries last, just regular AA's will last 3 weeks in them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And they will send a thumbnail to my spy point is one of the few that has a free program. Okay. So it will send thumbnails of each video to my phone. If you're in an area that has any type of phone coverage, this one is, I believe, set to the Verizon system, which is pretty damn good. So, yeah, and the other cool thing about it is that if I need to geolocate my camera, has a button that I can actually pinpoint where it is.
That's even better. I've had a couple stolen, so
right. Or if you lose them, you're like, "Where the hell is the camera?" Because you put them up at night sometimes, and then it comes the morning, you want to take them down. You're like, "Where the hell was that?" Because everything looks different.
But getting back to the point, they do love donuts, apparently.
They do, yeah. Yep, as do law enforcement officers. But, and of course, anything sweet, they'll go after. That's sweet and salty. That's the primate, weakness, I suppose. That's why we like our potato chips, and that's why we like our salty snacks, and that's why we like our candy.
I'm a huge salted caramel fan.
Me too.
Coming from a nutritionist.
Yeah.
And Eric, a little earlier when you were showing the juvenile tracks, OT put out a question and said, "What month were these juvenile prints found? Also, is this area with a high density of black bears?"
We actually have a very little population of black bears in the southern part of the state. Up north, we do have a lot more. I've never seen any black bears here in the Pine Barrens. I did find scat, however, this past April. Okay, it was a year ago, April, right, Jake, when we were out there?
Yep.
So a year ago, April. And the first juvenile prints we found were in October of 2015. The ones that I mentioned that I I was alerted by my friend Art. Was in April, I believe, of 2022, but same area, which kind of indicates like a breeding population going on, that there is a family group, hanging out in this area.
I think it was 2021.
It might have been 2021.
North Jersey does have a ton of bear, and of course, they between southern tier of New York and northern New Jersey. Wasn't there maybe 5-6 years ago there was a fatal encounter with a black bear, where somebody had gotten
I heard about that.
This is a black bear, American black bear.
Yeah. It's a big boy.
That's a big boy, yeah.
Yeah.
Highest density black bear population east of the Mississippi, North Sussex County, New Jersey.
And why is that? One would think, why not in the Adirondacks? Why not, but Sussex County, New Jersey.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you how dependent bears have gotten on scavenging human trash. I think that's a big part of it.
For sure.
Yep, for sure.
And Grant Rasha asked, where is the mid-tarsal break? And I think it's important to point out, Grant, that the mid-tarsal break may not be displayed on every cast. It depends on what the creature was doing, how it was walking or moving when it made that print.
And the substrate.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
This one does show a mid-tarsal break right over here, actually. It's just hard to tell.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You can see a little bit of a ridge here. Okay.
Right.
The real key thing to this is, though, that it doesn't have the traits of a human track impression. You know what I mean? As far as the transverse arch, it was in a muddy substrate.
Yeah.
Again, it was in, you can still see the leaves that were in the ground, you know what I mean? Where it was cast. And it was raining that day as well. This particular cast, though, was also a victim of the rubber casting for the mold material. It broke into about 50 pieces. Okay.
But
it was like a puzzle.
what is the mid-tarsal break? What does it do?
The mid-tarsal break is their feet kind of bend like this. Okay. So they're able to grip and travel better. They're Jeff Meldrum, of course, is the expert on the mobility, the anthropology of the joint. Mm-hmm. But we didn't get him to talk about that on our interview. We talked about why they ran back into the cabin when they had rocks thrown at them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey Jeff, who peed off the porch to piss off the Squatch that threw the rock at
Yeah.
So no, the mid-tarsal break is definitely something that distinguishes them from human track impression.
Lack of an arch, flat-footed, mid-tarsal break.
Splayed toes.
Inline toes, too.
Also, Cliff talks about the compression, and the juvenile ones that we found had that toe compression going on as well.
I missed this one.
I hope that answers the question.
I missed this one a little earlier. This is when you were talking about urinating on the tree, and making your presence known in the woods there. And Ron Meldrum says, if I saw Bigfoot, I might pee my pants, but I wouldn't pee on a tree.
Well, that's something we typically, do, especially when I'm in an area. I like to, mark my territory, as we say.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And we often kid around and I say, okay, whose territory is it now, Squatches? And to get a rise out of them, just like they
using
do with us.
An intimidation factor. That's understandable. Yeah.
And so that absolutely worked on that Thanksgiving morning, I have to say, because they definitely escorted me out.
Yeah, you really want them to escort you out. No, they'll escort you out.
Well,
I was like, who just did that?
What if you're attempting to use that technique and a horny alpha male comes running up on you, right? And I always say to Heather, well, I guess we'll have to take one for the team. I'm done.
That's all, folks.
That's why you always tell me you can run faster than me.
Well, yeah.
Mike is like, what the hell did I get myself into here?
Why am I back here by myself? Where'd they go?
Why am I surrounded by pork chops? That's my running gag is all the new people get the pork chop necklace. So
Michael likes pork chops.
Michael eats pork chops.
even if they run faster than you, they tend to go after the pork chops.
Just don't have your audio recorder on after you eat pork chops for like an hour later, you know.
Yes.
Now we better get off of food because this show has a terrible habit of starting to talk about food and staying on it for about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to see evidence of Michael and pork chops, just go check out our latest episode on Squatch.
Nice. Yeah,
That mom says in Tahoe, California, bears just walk around in town like it's nothing to them. The rest of us are hiding or running like retards, but the bears know where the food is. That's true.
That's true.
They become accustomed to where, you know.
and that happens in Alaska with the polar bears. Even they'll just walk in and grab whatever they want, or the grizzlies, and
they know where lunch and dinner is. You know, they smell that out. They get that in there, and now they know where they got to return to. You know,
Scott B says Gatlinburg all over town. Yeah, that's true.
So, out of all of you, what is the best Bigfoot encounter that you've heard of?
That's a good one. And so the best Bigfoot encounter that I've heard of is it's a tough one to say just because the area that it comes from, it's so overlooked because of development, but it gives you a good eye into how they travel through a highly dense populated area. It was my first investigative report that I did, and this was a couple of years back, and it's a small area in southern New Jersey, and it's surrounded by town and all over, but there's a greenway that runs from the southern portion of the Pine Barrens, and it's cut off by a town, and then it goes into the larger portion like Wharton and the bigger portions of the Pine Barrens. But back in 1998, this guy was driving down the road, and this was like a suburb, and he saw a 7-foot tall Sasquatch walk across the road right to the left into a waterway that runs into this power line cut, and it just goes down into some other parts of the Pine Barrens. Now, what kind of drew me to the report that other people may overlook just because of the area is the use of the greenway. So I talked to this guy on the phone, and he was very adamant of what he's seen, and I looked at the area, and then a light bulb clicked in my head that this is an area that's actually has a history of reports from a habituation site nearby, supposedly. There was a couple other reports further down towards the Millville, Vineland area. And this area seems to be kind of a hot spot where people have seen these creatures moving around and moving through the area. And it gave me a really good understanding of how they travel through these urban areas, through power line cuts and greenways, and even under like major highways like Route 55 and so on and so forth, especially in the wee hours of the morning when it's super dark out. Something that big can easily go undetected if they're using like a power line cut or a gas pipeline or something like that to travel through different portions of the Pine Barrens. And I think that's what really kind of got the gears turning in my head. Like, oh, wow, like they really can use these areas to their advantage, whether to go into suburbs to scavenge through garbage cans or go into deeper pockets of the Pine Barrens. So there's maybe more treat foods like blueberries and tons of, like, there's farms everywhere, so they can easily go in there and grab stuff. So it's not the most like, it's not an amazing report by other people's standards, but it definitely gave me better insight on how they may use suburbs and urban areas for their movements.
Yeah. Well, the amazing thing that I find is that some of the best reports aren't like these. Well, I had a 20-minute encounter or anything like that. Some of the best reports are the ones that connect the dots. Mm-hmm. And as a retired investigator, I look at dots, and you always look for the connections. When anytime you get a case, whether it be a criminal case, or otherwise, you're always looking for those dot connections. And when you get those dot connections, then that's what makes it, that's what makes it. And in this case, it's kind of a multi-layer investigation. You're talking about each sighting as a separate investigation, but you're looking at the overall picture. And it's almost like looking at a serial criminal, like a gang of bank robbers. You're looking for the same MO, and then you're looking for what's the connection here. And then all of a sudden, you have this event, and then the light bulb goes off. Oh, there it is, and that's why it becomes so important. So I really, I understand that completely.
Sure.
Yeah. For me, I this is before I became a BFRO investigator, and I was doing research on my own. I had a woman reach out to me who was from the North Jersey area that she was going to have an investigator come on the property and stay over for the weekend and try and see if they can record anything, or see anything, hear anything. And after they got denied, and she shared out with me her OneDrive pictures that she had taken of she had a possible potential habituation on her farm. And this is up in Sussex County now. So we know that area is populated, a lot of bears, activity, a lot of reports out of that area. So when she shared the OneDrive with me, I'm looking at all the pictures, and she had prints that were almost 20 inches long and like 10 inches wide. And I said, do you have any security cameras around your house? And she's like, well, I do. I said, did you catch anything? And she's, well, I got this black figure walking in the woods in the tree line. And I said, okay, share that portion out with me. And then when she shared out, I looked at the video, and I can see very faintly, okay, she had that little infrared going on. The camera wasn't really far, shooting. It was probably maybe a 10-foot infrared. But you can see something walking, like bopping between the trees, going through one side of the property to the other. And I'm like, what the heck is that? So I downloaded the video, and I put it through my software to try and change the brightness, the contrast, and everything else. And, it got to a point where I can make out just the top of this large head, okay, more rounded, kind of squarish coming down, and couldn't really compare the height because it was dark. And I'm watching this thing go, and it's just like boom, boom, going across. So I said to her, I'd like to come up to your farm and take a look at this. And she's like, well, let me think about this. And I said, because I want to kind of reenact what I'm seeing here on this video so I can get a height comparison to see what this thing potentially could be, how tall, where the area is, and what's around it. And the picture she sent me, she was on a farm, and behind her property was more of the Sussex County forest area, and then behind that was a power line cut that ran through that central Jersey up through Pennsylvania. Yeah. And then probably about another 10 miles away was a gas pipeline that comes from Sussex all through Sparta and up through North Jersey. And I said to her, I'd like to come in that area if you don't mind. I'll camp out overnight. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to have a little fire pit, me and another person. And she's like, well, let me think about it. And then let a week go by. I tried to contact her, and she ceased all contact. She killed the one link access and wrote me back saying, I'm not interested in showing this to anybody anymore. And I was I was depressed. I'm like, wait a minute, you actually have something really good here. I'm like, I'm not going to come on your property and do anything malicious. I'm like, you can watch what I do. You want me to sign a piece of paper? I'll sign a piece of paper for you, and that's what really intrigued me, because she had some tangible pictures that I could physically look at, and I went out and I brought a 3D scanner. So when I'm now going to do my print casts, I'm also going to try to do a 3D scan before I cast them. And I wanted to do that with her up there, which she had. And I said to her, are these prints covered, or like, where are they at? She's like, well, it's like in a dirt trail, like dirt bikes go. And I'm like, oh, these things are going to be gone. And she's like, no, I basically took a garbage can lid and covered over them so nothing will happen to them. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get up there and see this, and cast these things. And then when she told me no, a couple weeks later, I'm like, I was disappointed. I really.
So let me ask some questions. As see, this is the kind of stuff that really intrigues me, and here's my line of questioning. About how old was this woman?
Probably mid-40s.
Married or not?
married, had an older kid, mid-20s, she said, 30s.
Okay. Did she talk about how her husband felt about this or her kid about this?
Yeah, the husband felt like it was a bunch of malarkey. Like he didn't believe in Bigfoot. You know, he thought it was just like, you know, somebody out there trying to do a print in the ground. Right. And one of the key questions I asked her about that, I said, you know, how deep was this? When I looked at the picture, because she sent me different angles of the picture, and it looked about, I'd say probably about a good inch to 2 inches deep. That's why I wanted to get there and cast it. And the follower said, well, anybody's going to print.
Right. So 3 questions in, and I'm already sure it pretty much happened. Right. It's the husband that nicks the whole thing. No, I don't want anybody up here. I don't want it. Boom. So if there is a power line cut nearby,
it's about 2 miles away.
Right. I would take any access that you can get being close to that property without needing permission and take that as the route.
Yeah, it's tough because she owned a lot of the forest behind her house. So
gotcha.
I would be trespassing on her property, and
gotcha.
I don't want to do that. I want to.
No, and I wouldn't want you doing that either.
Yeah, I tried to contact her again. You know, saying, hey, you know.
Yeah, she's ghosted, and probably her husband probably laid the law down.
I almost
agree. Yeah.
You know, definitely agree.
Yeah. So that's why everything got cut. And in 3 questions, boom, you can figure out really that's what happened there. And that's the unfortunate thing. What I try to do is a lot of times, if the husband doesn't believe, I try to get them into like the conversation as well.
Yeah.
Because even if they don't believe, you can at least get them to believe that when you go in there, it's just to verify or thing. It's going to tell either way. And that can get really, you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Chris, what's up? What we got going on?
Good. Grant said she doesn't own the air, use a drone.
If I had one.
There's been a lot of drone activity in New Jersey lately, though.
Yeah, that's true. Right?
Yeah, I can attest for that. Investigated a couple of them, you know, been out there with researchers with close to $80,000 in gear and Christmas weekend. And, you know, we had the technology.
Right.
Nothing appeared. So, but again, it was raining that entire Christmas weekend. It was just miserable, you know, and you got to watch some of the gear we have out there. Can't get wet too much, you know, some of it's protected, but still you have to be careful. But.
Well, I like your focus on the power line cuts, because I believe that is an area that is entirely ignored by most Bigfoot researchers, but that's a super highway for these creatures to be able to cross through. And even if you subscribe to the theory that, well, they can just walk through, you know, dense woods, forest as easy as they could in the open air. Sure. But grass doesn't grow in the woods. And one of the theories that we have that these creatures exist on deer or other wild game that rely on grass and grazing. And so that's where the game is going to be. It's going to be in the power line cut grazing, getting the grass. And you know, if they eat these things, which we think they may, they're going to be out there following them around. Mm-hmm. So that's another one. Another area is under bridges. I mean, people ignore bridges. If you've got a river, you're following along, and there's a bridge there because there's a road crosses it. Where is the Sasquatch Bigfoot creature going to cross? Is it going to go up and across the road and take a chance on getting hit by a car? Or is it going to go between the river and the bottom of that bridge? Somewhere there's going to be a line of tracks that's either one side of the river or the other. But the power line cuts, man, I love that you guys are concentrating on those.
That's an excellent point, Chris. And Heather is going to bid us adieu because she's got to get up early for work tomorrow. But I just wanted her to come on board and give some of her input.
Thank you for coming on,
yeah,
Heather.
Thanks for coming on, Heather.
See you Thursday, Heather.
Are you going
to help me? Thursday.
I'll help you. You got to help her out of the studio.
Actually, and
That's
Jacob,
all right.
knock over all the cash.
Jacob had a good story he can share with everybody that on the one expedition where you had the eye shine, Jacob.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let's hear that. Yep.
Yeah. So on my first expedition, it was Eric's expedition. This was like a few years after my first experience where I wasn't really a believer. I'm very scientifically minded. I'm a former volunteer with the state for reptile and amphibian research, like rare and endangered animals. That's what kind of brought me into it, just from being out in the woods all the time and having a somewhat of an encounter in 2018 that I still I can't fully say what I experienced just because I didn't see it, but it definitely opened my mind to it. Anyway, I came about his expedition and I gave him the money for it, and I figured, you know what? It's a once in a lifetime thing, knock it off the bucket list, just see what these people are all about. And I went into it with an open mind, skeptical, but with an open mind. And I just wanted to just experience what these people are, going out in the woods for. And I go into it and I'm kind of thinking like, oh man, these guys are just going to be out here. They're going to hear coyotes and owls and foxes. And they're like, oh, did you hear that Bigfoot? Like I'm totally expecting them to freak out about everything.
Yeah.
And I get there, and of course, the first guy I'm talking to is talking about how the government releases dogmen and Bigfoot in the woods and everything. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Oh boy, it's gonna be a long weekend. Right. So, I after that, I meet Eric, and he helps me out with my tent, and everything's great, and we get ready for dinner, and I'm pretty blown away by how prepared these people are and very professional. They're all. They all have the walkies and they all have the equipment. I'm like, all right, these guys are serious about this. I'm digging it. I like it. This is cool. First night op, it was, nothing too much happened. It was like a Pied Piper routine where we all walked down the trail and we kind of split up, and we had a team sitting kind of close to camp to see if anything would follow us back to camp. And I don't remember anything really happening other than like a distant howl, which could have easily have been a coyote or something. But, that night was, it was nice getting out like that. And then the second night, skipping ahead to then, before I go to that, during the day, we went to a sighting location, actually, that Eric investigated in 2018, where a woman was driving down the road with her husband and had one run across the road behind her in her rear view, which was an interesting encounter because when people usually report something, they think it's always running across in front of their car. But this time it was leaping across the road, almost like a ballerina puree across the road behind them. So we went to that location, checked it out. Of course, someone had to fall in the water because every expedition, it's not an expedition until something or someone falls in the water and gets wet, right? So it's like, oh, here we go. And of course, the entire time I'm like looking for wildlife. I'm looking for snakes. And, like I said, my mind's still not fully into it. But the second night out, we go to an area known as K Pond, which is it's a really small body of water next to an old cranberry bog. And we're all kind of sitting there and we're just,
I thought a K Pond was like a small chicken.
You know what?
Pond.
K Pond, yeah.
Actually, Cape Pond is abridged because it's named after our dear friend Kevin, who was a researcher here in New Jersey who passed on a few years ago. So affectionately.
Oh, Kevin. Yeah, I knew Kevin. Yep.
And it's funny. I had a dream. He was in my dream last night. You believe that?
Oh, wow.
We were squatching. It was pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Jake.
So, no, you're good. You're good. But we sit down and we basically, when we go in an area, we have to sit down for like an hour, let the woods kind of settle around us and get used to the nighttime noises. And we hear, I forgot what the first thing we did. You let me do a whoop, and I do the whoop, and I hear faint. It sounds like 3 whoops in the distance, but like I said, it was so far away. It was just like it could have been a goose. It could have been something else. I wasn't really thinking, but as we're sitting there, we're kind of all like, continuing to sit in silence. I'm pretty sure it was only me hearing it. I think Patty might have heard it too. Maybe she can confirm it. But I heard what sounded like talking. It sounded like kind of like the samurai chatter that people talk about, where it's this very distant. It's like every time the wind would blow, I'll almost hear it in the wind. It was just this gibberish I was kind of hearing. And I was like, okay, well, that's pretty weird. And then, of course, the night gets ended by a bunch of ATVers and dirt bikers driving through and, you know, kind of ruins the activity. But I think the night that really opened my eyes to the subject and kind of turned me into a believer from a skeptic was the final night up, where we went to an area we call the Bowl, which has a long history of wood, tons of vocalizations, wood knocks, and other things. And Patty's going to be involved in this story because she was right next to me when this happened. So we basically had a team of all females stay inside of the Bowl, and we had another team go to the cranberry bog, and we were going to sit at the around the dam where the cranberry bog was at. And you know, the first 3 hours of the night, it's very quiet. Nothing's really happening. It's pretty dead, and it's like a half moon. It's not like a full moon, but it's not like totally dark out either. And you know, nothing's going on. We're all sitting there, and you know, we start talking about politics and stuff like this, and it's like, oh gosh, like something happened. We heard like beavers slapping their tails in the water, it would get us to jump up a little bit, but nothing was going on. And then Nate, who's another BFR investigator for PA, gets a call on his radio saying that, hey guys, can you guys come back to the Bowl? Patty's communicating with one. And so I'm thinking, like, communicating with one, what does she mean? Like, so we get up and we start heading back down the trail, and how the trail kind of goes, it forks out from the dam to once you hit the fork, you can see the Bowl, and you can kind of see everyone standing there. And as we're turning around the corner to start heading towards the Bowl, we get two loud knocks to our left, like power knocks. So I'm freaked out. I start pointing, and then and Nate's like, "Don't point, don't do that." And that's like the first thing I was taught, like, don't ever point at anything. Like, all right,
one demerit.
Yeah, demerit.
See, told you, demerits.
So
where's the demerit sound? I know we have one here.
Yeah, you got to put
there it is.
Sound up.
Yeah, one demerit.
Yeah, that's what I got for pointing.
I believe the same way. Yeah, if you hear a noise and somebody said, "Where's it at?" Say it's over to the left, but don't.
Yeah. I have to say 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock.
Don't look over there, but it's over there. Yeah.
Forget it. Jake, continue. That was great.
Yeah, that was awesome. So we get to the Bowl, and everyone's kind of looking up at basically, to describe the Bowl, it's exactly how it sounds. It's three sides. It's elevation on three sides, and then it's an area where we believe they can kind of come and check us out and feel comfortable because they have the high ground, and they can kind of, you know, they feel more comfortable where they're at, and they don't feel like we're looking at them or anything. But it's three sides elevation, and behind us is a cedar swamp that's right along the cranberry bog. So I get there, and one of the attendees says, "Go ahead, Patty, do a whoop." And she does a whoop. And then probably like a couple seconds later, we get a whoop response from about 75 yards to 100 yards in the woods in front of us. And, you know, the way this whoop was, there's no animal in North America that makes this type of sound other than a human or some other unknown creature. So it was just like a gibbon. It was like a whoop, this very, very, like, I don't even know how to describe it other than like a monkey sound. And
so let me play something for you.
Yeah.
And did it sound something like this?
Yes. Very, very, very similar to that.
That was Whitehall 2023, the end of 2023.
I would say it was like that, but it was a little bit softer, and we kind of get the impression that it's almost like we call it like a lovesick juvenile type of whoop where. But anyway, it starts doing those. So she would whoop, and it would whoop response, and sometimes it would whoop and it would whistle, and it would whoop and it would knock, and it was kind of doing this as it was coming closer to our position. So while this is all happening, and you know this individual is clearly getting closer to us, and like at the time, like I don't know what to think other than it's either somebody messing with us or it's something else. And
was anybody recording this at the time?
I don't believe
Audio recording was going on.
Audio.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
was it?
awesome.
Okay. So anyway, as this is happening, in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, this is either we're getting our money's worth, or we're really experiencing something here, right? And so after we were getting those whoops, Shelly, who was on the expedition with us, she starts saying, "Hey guys, I see eye shine." So in my head, I'm looking, and kind of where our trucks are parked, there's a red security light. So I'm like, "Oh, that's the red security light. You're seeing the red security light." And she's like, "No, look to the right of those." And as I kind of scan to the right of the trucks, I just see these really bright, like almond-shaped royal blue eyes poke like behind the tree, like on the one side. And then as I'm watching, it felt like a minute when I was watching. It was probably only like 5 or 10 seconds where it was just one side, went to the other side, it kind of crouched down, and it was just doing this. And it wasn't like glowing eyes. It was more or less like, it was like the reflection off the moon. And at that point, I'm like, there's no way that's a person. That's clearly like eye glow from something else. And as I'm watching that, I start to hear behind me in the swamp what sounds like something coming in from our left to our right. It was sounding like some very low groaning noises, and like these, I don't even know how to describe it, like almost like heavy breathing kind of noise, like just moving in behind us. And at that point, I'm kind of thinking like, we're getting like flanked right now. We're getting like surrounded, because we have the individual whooping to our 3 o'clock. We have the eye shine to our like 11 o'clock. And behind us, we have these noises moving in behind us.
Mm-hmm.
So as this is all happening, we're all just kind of sitting there, and we're just waiting for what's going to happen next. And as all of this is happening, one of the attendees said that she had pebbles being thrown at her back when she was sitting there while we were listening to the whoops and everything. And as all of this is happening, it just all kind of dies down and stops. And after that, I mean, the activity just all of a sudden kind of disappeared and stopped. And apparently some of the attendees went and took a hike after that, and they heard a howl that almost sounded like kind of like it's personifying it, but it was like they said it was like a goodbye, like kind of like howl, like it was very mournful and sad. And that it definitely completely changed my opinion on the subject. It totally.
So let me give you a great idea for the change in tonality.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't saying goodbye. It was likely communicating to the other ones that they're leaving.
Yeah.
Or that the threat is coming down. When we start thinking in terms of humans, and the great term I use is anthropomorphization.
Right.
Is that we tend to look at things in that, but what probably is going on is that is some sort of communication call to others in the area that whatever threat is there is receding or leaving.
Okay.
Just as a thought, a train of thought.
They probably said, hey guys, after these dudes leave, let's check the trees for apple cider donuts and apples.
But what's great is you have all these details right up there. You know exactly. Now let me ask you a question. Was there, what exactly preceded with your team's activity just prior to all the activity going?
That's a good question. Right before that, I mean, like when they were having the whoops and everything, we all kind of moved into the bowl, and we had a lot more people, which potentially could have intimidated them potentially.
Right.
And this is an area too where we've had multiple occasions where something would come in, it would make itself known somehow, whether it would be knocking or it would whoop or break a branch. And then the same thing would happen where they just kind of all stops. As Eric says, they have an attitude, and they say, they come in, forget about it. They come in, they mess with you a little bit, and then they leave, and they don't really stay too long.
And that is something I've constantly experienced, is the coming in and the receding, and then the coming back in and the receding.
Yep.
And it's kind of like a game to them.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was there at the expedition with Jacob. That's where I met Jacob. And I was in the B team, we call it, on the other side of the dam. We were sitting around in a circle, and we heard that like whoop. We weren't sure. We were all a little talking, and we heard something. We were all like, shh, quiet, you know. And then they radioed over saying, "Hey, did you guys hear that?" And we're like, "Yeah." You know, was that somebody doing a yelp on their own? And they're like, "No." And then we were like, "Okay, game on," you know. And then, like Jacob said, towards the end, it just stopped. And then I remember 2 team members came around for the back of the dam, went past us, and went down a fire cut around a bend to try and go around the backside of it, see if they can see anything or hear anything. So that was quite an adventure on that night we had.
And I was on my team about a half mile away at Capon, and we're standing there twiddling our thumbs, and nothing going on at all. But people on their group kept saying, "Oh, we see eye shine moving in your direction." I'm like, "Yeah, great, here we go." You know, never got over to us, but yet I had let Patty, who's in the chat, go hang out with the other team because I wanted to keep all the women together on that night. Okay. And so that was a smart idea for Nathan to have all the ladies stay together at the bowl while they went off to the levee and hung out in a couple of different spots so we can do, some back and forth provocations,
Cowboy said, please play the audio. Cowboy, we don't have the audio.
Yeah.
That clip you heard earlier was Steve's from the Adirondacks.
And just on that point, though, Chris, the audio doesn't do it justice, I have to say. Even if you get fantastic knocks recorded, which I have many, many knocks recorded, it doesn't do it justice from what you hear when you're out there and when you bring it home. You know what I mean? Even
the audio I played you guys was amplified. Right. But if you were standing there hearing that, it'd be like, wow, that was friggin' loud.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The reason I like to always encourage my attendees to bring a digital recorder, though, because like I said earlier, they're not going to sit there and pose for you to take a picture generally, right? But if you record vocalizations or knocks or whoops, whatever the case is, that's something you can take home with you, and you can play it over and over again. You can share it with your friends. You know what I mean? It's something that you can really relive.
And the other thing too is, because let's face it, all the action cameras, they don't have great vision at night. They don't have them in night vision, but it's great to have that audio recorder there to record what's going on amongst the conversation. Wow, we just heard this. We're hearing walking over here, and hopefully that audio recorder will pick some of that up. But it's a good way of journaling your journey.
And you know what's funny? When you said that, Steve, it just reminded me. We were in Mijo, Pennsylvania, back in October, and Patty was there and Nathan was there, and on our night op, Nathan got hit by a rock so hard. I mean, it came, I think they were aiming at me because I was doing all the provocations and doing an antagonist, but it went over my head and hit Nathan. He was holding my mic stick with very sensitive Kimbrough audio microphones, right, attached to my H1N.
Sure.
And he had the headphones in, and he was like, "Oh, what the F was that?" Because he had the audio going, and we were filming too. We were doing some filming, right? I was able to use the audio from the digital recorder to use in the episode. You know what I mean? Nice. So it really brings it out nice. So.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to do a podcast right here. Chris was down there safe in Kentucky.
Yeah.
And I was out there with Tactical Bigfoot Research, and we had a rock thrown at us that was clearly caught in the podcast. You could hear it go skittering along.
Yeah. You could hear the second one come in also, and you could hear it skipping on the ground. So.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
And my reaction, and Pat Collins, who forever, and I just ran into Pat Collins today, forever always says, "Damn it, you have a 600-pound gorilla out there throwing rocks at you, and if something threw a rock at me, I'd be out of that. I'd be like, see you later." You sit there and laugh, Colsey. I don't know how you do that.
Right.
That's what we do. We're like,
we do.
Yep.
I want to get hit by a rock.
Yes. More.
I actually, you can check the episode. It's the,
Chris is like, nope.
the Joe episode. I say, hey, can you do that again?
Yeah.
Can you do that again?
And when they start throwing rocks, I'll leave. Say yes.
See?
I want to experience the actual infrasound, and Eric,
That that I can do without. Truthfully, that I can do without.
I've got a great piece of technical hardware. It's by Infiniray. It's an infrasound detection device. Okay, it's not some small thing you buy on Amazon. This is a $600 piece of equipment that they use in windmills. Okay, when the wind turbines are building outside to detect how much pressurization, to calibrate, and it records and it logs, and you can see graphs. This thing goes out, and it does an area probably about 100 by about 300 feet, and it has sensors that actually go down on the ground, and with these sensors it'll pick up that infrasound, and I can log it and record it. So when they were talking about the bowl, the bowl, we've had some really odd things happen there. So I want to put this infrasound detector out there and see if it picks up anything. Okay. Another thing I'm going to be doing at our expedition, I've been actually working on this little piece of apparatus right here in the background, which is 3 cameras. The 2 cameras, well, they're all infrared. Okay. The middle one is a dome security camera, 4K. It's 60 frames per second. Okay. This one here. And then you got a little camera off to the side here, this one here, and then there's another one right here. Well, that is a forensic camera. It's used in forensic analysis for traffic conditions, where they can detect the license plate. They can actually read a license plate from close to 400 or 500 feet away from the camera, even up to a mile away, depending on what lens you put on, And these lenses are super zoom, super powerful. Well, the software I'm running is used based upon my UFO research. It's from the UFO DAP, And this thing is built by an engineer, and it's pre-programmed. It detects objects in the sky. It'll tell you bird, plane, fly, and highlights it, and it tracks it. You actually see the movement. So I'm like, well, wait a minute. If this is doing sky objects, why can't I put a 90-degree angle on here and point this thing out into the woods and see if it detects a human presence? Well, it does. My son was a guinea pig. I put this whole camera setup out on my deck. I had my son walk 50 feet away at night, and this thing, he lit up on there as clear as can be. This is going to be a game changer for us because the clarity on these cameras, the one camera alone is $2,300. This is not some security 4K you can buy on Amazon. This is by Axis, and these are high-end forensic cameras. So
that's good. You didn't get it off of eBay. I got banned from eBay.
No. I got fried on eBay one time too. I'm like, yeah, no. And these,
I'm sorry. Let me stop you just a second. How do you spell that? Axis.
Axis. It's AXIS.
AXIS.
So if you look them up, they were on the that new other Bigfoot show on TV. It just ended a little bit for the season, where they did one episode where they had the arch beam up and all the Axis cameras on there, the thermal and the zoom in and all that. Right. This is the same manufacturer. So these is when I had seen what they'd done, I reached out to Axis and said, hey, this is what I'm doing. You can laugh at me what you want, but I want something that's going to be crystal clear clarity. Because we always see in the Bigfoot community, we're known for blurry images, And I need to take it up a level. And I built this system using that software, and I downloaded another software as another backup that I can compare both. So now I have 2 different software with versions that I can compare both for my analysis and say, one can rule out the other. You can see the clarity. When my son turned to me, and faced me, when I put the one forensic camera on him, his eyes were crystal clear. You could see him blink like crystal clear. And I zoomed in on him. I mean, I'm probably about 100 foot away in my backyard, and I zoomed right on his eye, and I could see his eye movement going. I can see him blink. This is going to be a game changer, and I'm going to bring this to Eric's expedition. We're going to try it out.
Now, in your yard, did you use him behind foliage at all?
No, there's really I don't foliage.
So now, Now I would start practicing getting it to adjust to things behind foliage.
Yeah.
Because the better you get at that technique, when the event happens, it's the way they train spec ops is that, you just practice, and you put yourself in the environment that you're going to be operating in.
Exactly.
So my suggestion would be go out and try to get like a raccoon or a deer or something, some animal in the wood line, and go out and play and test it.
Yeah, the good thing is next to my duct tape it to a drone. Well, unfortunately, you can't duct tape. It's probably about this big, the camera. So
Grant's just
Grant, no way, man. I got a $5,000 camera. I'm gonna duct tape it to a drone. No.
I hooked up my AGM 384 to my drone, my Phantom 4, and I was able to fly it over base camp and control the drone with one, with my phone, and have the tablet control the therm. So that was kind of cool. We actually took some photos of the group via drone.
Right.
And therm.
Well, there was an episode of Finding Bigfoot where Matt Moneymaker had a thermal setup on top of his Escalade. Yeah, and they're driving around. Mm-hmm. That was amazing. I was like, dang.
We have that one.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yep. That's good stuff. That is good
we
stuff.
We have that as well. Yeah. And it pans and tilts, what I mean? So the quality on that one's not as good, though. I have to say the AGM is so much better, and it records video as well as still photos. Yeah. So
AGM's got a good setup, good quality.
So we're pretty well equipped now when it comes to that. I gotta say, in the chat, Ron Meldrum, Dr. Meldrum's son, said, Eric, if they threw a rock at you, would you pee on it and throw it back? Yeah. Excellent question. But I will say this. Having learned now about eDNA, I would say no. I would put on my nitrile glove and I would pick it up and I would put it into a specimen into our eDNA scientist.
Yeah. Yep. And let me get some of these questions that we've had in the chat here. I'm going to Mick's got a good one that he posted a little bit earlier here. It says a question for the panel. The X-Files had a Jersey Devil episode in which feral humans were implicated. All right. Do you think it's possible that Sasquatch are being misidentified as the Jersey Devil?
I understand the question, and it's funny because we just did a show with Small Town Monsters. The three of us were involved in a filming that they did in our Pine Barrens, and Alex Pedikov actually mentions that in the production. And it's not, I can't give any spoilers yet because it's not out yet, but we were able to see it. And it's one of it is his favorite X-Files episode, and it does talk about these potential feral humans being in the Pine Barrens, and the potential for there to be that connection to Bigfoot. As I said, and I always say, JD, Jersey Devil, because the Devils are playing their game. Okay.
Goodbye, Raptor. Hold on.
Is folklore, perpetuated by
Ron
having encounters with Bigfoot.
Hey, Eric, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
I need to play this, and this is for Raptor. Remember Raptor? Yeah. Well, we know who he is now in the chat.
Enjoy the band.
There we go.
All right.
That's great.
That's perfect.
So moving on.
The question, that's definitely what's happening. People are having these, encounters with Bigfoot, and they're wrapping their minds around the Jersey Devil folklore. Okay. Right. And if you think about it, there's a 8-foot-tall individual with red glowing eyes screaming at them, and it's got the arms flailing and the hair hanging down. It looks like wings, right?
Right.
And typically, as I say, there's usually substances or alcohol involved in the encounter, which changes the result.
And Habituation and Bigfoot Investigative Team says we believe the opposite. The Jersey Devil is a misidentified Bigfoot sighting. Exactly. Red eyes, big, moves fast through the woods. Exactly.
And screams and
oh yeah,
and smells really bad too. By the way,
yeah, very bad,
stinky.
Yep, I've had the opportunity to smell one of those guys,
and Mike knows this. Habit is also people that were on our expedition. I don't want to name any names, but they were there encountering this situation at the bowl that night, and when we had trees getting pushed over.
Right.
I asked for a tree to get pushed over, and 5 minutes later,
Oh yeah.
right behind. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's why I always I like when you're in a very, very squatchy area and you hear one tree go down. Okay, well, you heard a tree fall in the woods. Well, that's a rare occurrence, but no big deal. It can happen. But in 5 minutes later, when another one falls, I think it's time to leave.
And when we were out,
we had three on one night in British Columbia. Okay,
Yeah.
and it was an alpha male, 9.5 feet tall, all black, at No Name Lake, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is going to be great." We heard artillery shell, wood knocks. We had three trees get pushed over, and then this guy Neil turned on his camera equipment and went, doo-doo-doo-doo, and that was it. Nothing after that. Killed all the activity. So
yeah.
And that weekend we were filming, Eric, with Small Town Monsters. We just got set up and we're sitting there, and what happens? We heard kerbang! The big tree fell. We all jump up because it was like 4 feet behind us.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, I don't know if Jacob's going to want to answer this one. I'll put it up here, but maybe a general area, maybe, yeah.
General area.
Yeah, Jacob, what was the general area where you heard the samurai chatter?
It was Ocean County in the Pine Barrens. It's as general as I want to get because
Close
it's a special area.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jake, by the way, does great samurai chatter. I have to say, him and I don't know if Mike Young is still in the chat room or not, but we need to get Jake and Mike Young together and have them do back and forth samurai.
And earlier, Mike Stetton made a comment. I missed this earlier, but he said my friend saw a 3-toed print in the snow at the Fort Plain Cemetery. Is that in New Jersey?
Fort Plain is in New Jersey.
Sounds like South
Jersey. It would have to be. Yeah.
And now everybody's checking where the hell is.
And somebody brought up the hammerhead bat, right? Also known as the winged moose, I believe is the other name. And that's something we talk about in this episode they have coming out soon. So check it out. Go to Alex's, I think it's Small Town Monsters, Strange Places.
Yeah. And Eric, what's your channel for everybody out there? I'll make sure we get that in there.
Well, I'm Squatch Talks podcast. Squatch Talks with an S, not Pat's channel, Squatch Talk.
Yes, we don't want to go to. Never mind.
You don't want to confuse it with Pat Turner's channel.
I don't know how you could.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate you. But no, we just, we're having fun. You know what I mean? It's a small channel, but hey, if you want to go over and check us out and give us a like and a sub, we always do appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll get my butt over there. There's so many podcasts now.
Oh, I know. Ever since, it's funny, when I started mine like 3.5 years ago, all of my guests that I've had on have now started their own podcast. It's amazing. But the pretext to ours is it's real researchers telling real stories and encounters. That's the difference. I'm not just reading other people's stories. And when we run out of our own, until we go out and make more, I bring on other people other researchers who tell their real stories. You know what I mean? So that's the kind of.
So we've kind of gone to a variety. Like we haven't done interviews in a while, so I figured we'll do some interviews in the next few weeks. But a lot of times we do educational stuff. We'll do news shows. We'll do analysis of evidence on the air. And then, of course, and I think this is coming up for this Wednesday, is the really bad Bigfoot movie night.
I saw that.
Great.
Or actually, no, it's a week from this Wednesday. I apologize.
I know we're running out of time here. I know your show wraps up in a couple hours. I just wanted I was checking out some of the stuff you posted, and there was the episode about the thing about Todd Stanton, right?
Oh, Standing, yeah.
Standing, yeah, and his thing coming out, and then there was something about the Squatch for State Farm, and the new Jake. Yeah. We got that already. Jake. Jake.
Well, his name is Jacob, but yeah, Todd. And again, as somebody said, it looks like the cheese slid off the cracker. And Chris doesn't even know this because I haven't talked to Chris since this has happened. That happened yesterday. But I had run across a video that somebody had pointed me to. Actually, Para Breakdown, I think, featured it. And apparently Todd in his last interview now called Blinky. Everybody remembers Blinky, the Blink, right? He now calls, well, that's Jake.
Jake from State Farm.
And from State Farm. and,
Right.
and Jake, I didn't even know. Oh, I gotta find that graphic. I don't want to put up the real graphic. Oh, there it
It's
is.
on your Facebook. But yeah, that's the thing.
But anyway,
we
so
tried to get Todd on, and his people wouldn't agree to have him come on their show.
No. Let's see. Hang on a second. Oh, that's why.
Wasn't Big Jake Linda Newton Perry's creation?
No, that was Big Clyde.
Clyde. Okay, Clyde.
But anyway, there's the graphic.
Oh my God.
But anyway, he called Blinky Jake and said that's his friend and his teacher. So he has gone to the dark side of things now.
Sasquatch approved.
And I like what you call it, woonacy.
Yes.
Yeah.
We call it. We're now calling it paranormal parallels.
Well,
So anyway, Trackway has a question, by the way, Chris. So you're gonna.
Wait a minute. I missed it. Let me find it.
Got to put it in caps, guys. Otherwise,
Did I star it? No, I did not. Steve, can you put it up there? Which one?
I don't know where it is because he didn't.
Okay, hang on.
Finding the Trackway is the guy.
Also, Sasquatch Wizard Adirondacks has a question too.
I did not put it in the star.
Have you heard anything resembling the sound of a zipper? Just when I was in my territory.
Oh my God.
Guy, I tell you, you invited us.
Oh, that's all good. I mean, that's. Yep. Okay, that was it. Yep, the zipper. Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
And I believe Nick has a question.
Let's see. Well, I did want to put out the Poncho. Poncho Zorch said that Staten, Kentucky had a Bigfoot festival this weekend. Yay! Absolutely a professional event. Had a great lineup of speakers and guests. If you're able, we'll be going next year.
Yeah, and you got
may
to
check
Cliff
into that.
Erickson and Jeff Meldrum. So, and next weekend we're going to see Dr. Meldrum and Mariah Mayer, Ronnie LeBlanc,
Wild Blackburn.
Wow,
thank
Blackburn.
you.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking of. Yep, and other great guests, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well,
Weird New Jersey's going to be there. Hey, so from Mark and Mark.
John Least made comments that South Jersey is a perfect melting pot for them observing, because you have the JD lore that visits in people's mind, Jersey Devil, as well as Indian burial grounds that add an eerie vibe to the area. Indian burial grounds. I did not know this.
Yeah.
Oh, and here's
Totally
Squatch Wizard Adirondacks.
Oh yeah, John. Yep.
That the guest referred to a sound as an artillery round. I said artillery fire, but we were hearing these in British Columbia. Okay, and these knocks sound like an artillery shell going off. It's not your standard type of knock. You know what I mean? This was like boom, and when you hear that, you go, "Now that's a knock."
Yep.
And I've had them recorded too, by the way. So that's
Nice.
amazing. You know, these sounds that they can generate, and it happened right in front of me on the hillside. Okay, this was the first night that all the people, the attendees, had shown up. The women had taken a walk around base camp with their red LEDs on, and I'm sitting there in my camp chair, and I'm facing the hillside, and this knock came up from up on the hillside so loud, and then Rob, the organizer, grabbed the baseball bat and ran over to the knocking tree, and I almost said, "Don't respond," you know, but it's his expedition.
Right.
And he does a knock, and that was it. No more activity that night. But it's funny, on Saturday, his wife Debbie did a knock on a tree just to see if she could do a knock. And 2 seconds later, a tree gets pushed over. Like, oh yeah, look what I can do.
I've actually had that happen to me in Massachusetts.
Hmm.
I did a whoop call, actually, like, whoa. Here's a comment by Mick, and a very honest comment. One thing I have a problem with is guys like Green and Tandon spend decades researching without ever having an encounter. And here we seem to have multiple people who've had multiple encounters, myself included.
In the right place at the right time.
And there's a big reason, I think, for that.
Mm-hmm.
And let me go down my list and see if you guys have anything more. Is that number one, we have access now to more information, more sightings. Our equipment is, we have ways of pinpointing areas. And now we go in with recorders, we go in with cameras, we go in with night vision, we go in with thermal. A lot of times, think about the day, DeHenden just went in with probably just a flashlight. Yeah. They didn't have high-end recorders. They didn't have any of the media we had. Think about Alan Berry in 71, 72 in the High Sierras, the equipment that he had to carry in to capture the Sierra sounds took, hours to set up to get a quality recording, and they were on big spindly tapes. So, for me, it's just the evolution you would expect. Now, the other factor I have, too, is that when they were in it in the 50s, 60s, and early 70s, there wasn't as much urban sprawl. Since then, we have had the loss of a lot more forested land, which is forcing them into more narrower, closer quarters of the woodlands. So that's a couple of my takes on that.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else has anything else to add to that.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely right.
For sure. And then, as far as, like I had mentioned earlier, my mentor, Todd Prescott from Ontario, has been doing this research for 35, 40 years, never saw one. I know a lot of people have been doing it longer than I have. It's just a matter of being, like I said, in the right place at the right time. And I think Jake and I and Mike will attest to this as well. We try to go in with a good attitude and to send out good energy, welcoming thoughts. You know what I mean? Again, I'm not into the whole woo thing, as we used to call it. Okay. But I believe in keeping an open mind and putting out positive energy. You know what I mean? And not feeling like a threat to these individuals, and as a result, we've had some success. The
other thing too is how you carry yourself. And even, even though it has not, you're right, it has nothing to do with any of the woo factor. What it does is it projects you as something that's coming into the wood line, and other animals can sense that you're not in there like stalking. You're in there just like, oh, okay, here we are. Okay, hi, announcing yourself, stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, another point. Boris made a good point here. He said Green and to a lesser extent, the Hendon were responding to reports.
And if you think about it, I use a primate model to look at behavior, to respond to where I'm going to put my butt in my team, and my equipment, rather than it's a roadside crossing. That's a ranging type of thing. What's the recidivism going to be on that? Mm-hmm. It's okay to go out there, check it out, see if there's any evidence. But other than that, it's good for a reference point to say, okay, where may they be coming from? The whole idea is getting to their territory, I think. Yeah, and then staying out of their territory, but enough to pique their curiosity and bring them towards us.
And Habit makes a good point about, we all spend more time in the woods. That increases your chances. Obviously, you're not going to see one if you're sitting doing armchair research on the couch.
Right. Not that there's anything bad with that, but
not at all. We need that.
Yeah.
We need that as well. It's just that's why you need to get outdoors, and that's why we encourage people, to get out there, enjoy nature, get out of your head, put the cell phone down, put down the technology, and ground yourself.
Yeah. Okay, Chris, we're at the 10:53 mark, so we might. So anyway, I'm going to go around the table here again with any of your final thoughts and comments. Jacob, you're up first, because.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that people do look at the not just New Jersey in general, but South Jersey, North Jersey, whatever, and they may see that it's urban sprawl. You have 3 major cities that surround the state of New Jersey, and people look at somewhere like the Pine Barrens as it's this landlocked area that there's no way that large animals can live there, and there's no way for them to have access to larger ranges like the Adirondacks or the Appalachian Mountains. And we found that there's a lot of evidence and a lot of sighting data that points to the opposite of that, where there's plenty of greenways and there's plenty of ways for large animals to move from the Appalachian mountain areas and some of the more wooded areas that are north of us to be able to go into the Pine Barrens, whether it's with looking for food like blueberries and farms and cranberries and whatever food is down there.
Treat foods, yeah.
Right. And we have black bears that come in, and they don't den in South Jersey. They go up to North Jersey. The black bears we get down here are more of the subadult males that are out wandering and looking for blueberries and stuff. And
boo-boos.
Yeah. And they're not coming through cities, and they're probably using the same greenways to get from North Jersey into South Jersey. And there's plenty of areas you look on a map, you see a lot of farmland. There's tons of power line cuts. There's tons of easy ways for larger animals to move in the early morning hours or at nighttime and be completely undetected and be able to navigate. Especially, it's crazy to me that New Jersey is it's most populated state, per square mile in the country. But if you drive around at 2-3 in the morning, there's practically nobody out. It's like once it gets dark, it's just people they go about their lives, they go home, and it's deserted. There's nobody out, and there's absolutely plenty of resources in the state of New Jersey and southern New Jersey for large animals to sustain themselves and completely be not be seen by the general public. We have every habitat you can imagine. We have bogs, swampland, uplands, and hardwood forests, softwood forest, you name it. Like, we have it down here. So when people are skeptical, which for sure you got to be skeptical about everything, we do have a lot of the proper resources to sustain a creature potentially like a Sasquatch to survive it's not just in the state of New Jersey, but southern New Jersey. It seems landlocked, but if you look at it and you look at the reports and you look at the data, there is a ton of ways that something like that could remain hidden and unseen for the most part.
Yeah. Very cool.
How about you, Mike?
I reiterate Jacob says, don't discount New Jersey as not having something here, and we shouldn't discount any state in the United States that may potentially have, a Sasquatch coming through or living there or, breeding there. You can't discount it. You hear reports, we see the reports, you heard our experiences we've personally encountered and had, and we, like Eric said, we go with an open mind. We go in acting natural, and I hope others follow the same suit, to keep an open mind to things, especially things we think couldn't potentially be. It opened my mind up to other areas, other realms, and I hope others also feel that same way.
Eric, we'll wrap with you.
Well, I just want to thank you, Steve and Chris, for having us on tonight, and thank all the people in the chat room for their great questions. Hey, you know what? I said it earlier. This gets me out of my head. It gets me a way to de-stress and gain some serenity, right? I didn't ever expect to become an investigator or a researcher way back when, or an organizer. Now Jake's my co-organizer on this expedition we're having in a week. And we're going to bring some new people out into the forest and teach them how we go about doing this research. And hopefully they'll take what they learn and they'll take it back to their neck of the woods and continue to do it in their area. And this is how I've met people like Jake and Mike and others that have become like family to me. You know what I mean? It's like, what better way to get out there and meet people and enjoy nature and really, like Patty and Mike and everybody else who's in the chat, lifelong friendships that have become like family, and it's amazing, this journey we're on. I'm not trying to prove it to anybody. Yeah, I'm having fun with the podcast, and yeah, I go out and I do things for the BFRO. I know people sometimes have negative thoughts about the BFRO, but you know what? Matt put together a great team of investigators, and he's the best database in the world. So you can say what you want about Matt. We love him. He's pretty cool to hang out with. And it's not about finding Bigfoot. It's about the research. That's really what it comes down to. You know what I mean? I get to meet people like Steve up at Whitehall. I didn't win because I was sandwiched between Brian, who was the 2022 winner, and this guy Ben, who was on my Pennsylvania expedition. I said, Ben, what are you doing here? I knew I was screwed. Okay, sandwiched between Ben and Brian. I'm complaining now, but hey, it was a lot of fun, and you were a great MC for the event. So again,
thank you. And guys, you're welcome anytime. If you guys are up in Whitehall this year, you're all invited to come along for our little after event up in my research area 1. And
I didn't take you up on that offer, and I apologize for that. But we did have thermal that night back at our base camp in
nice.
So
nice. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's the time of year. It's perfect time of year. And again, if you want to come up this year, you're more than welcome to.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
We're due this year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, Chris, take us out, brother.
Well, again, I want to thank, we got Jacob Korbel, Mike Patrick, Eric, and Heather Spinner. Thank you guys for joining us. And I've totally enjoyed listening to you guys. And it was very entertainment and very educational. Thank you so much. Now, if you guys are just listening for the first time, remember Eric Spinner has a podcast called Squatch Talks with an S. And check it out. Get over there and check it out. For everybody over in the chat tonight, thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate you. If there's anybody new that popped in tonight, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. If you haven't smashed the thumbs up button, please do so, or on the way out if you can. We sure appreciate it. It helps us with our daily battle against this YouTube algorithm.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, really. But I always say it because I always mean it. You know, we know we've got the greatest audience we could ever hope to have. And thank you, guys. This is only made possible because of you. Thank you so much for joining us and hanging out with us on Sunday nights and sometimes Wednesdays and Fridays, too. Oh, man.
And, folks, again, thanks you to all my guests tonight, all our guests tonight, Jake, Mike, Eric, and Heather. Even though Heather's right now in Nappy Land.
Maybe not. I gave you a sub too.
Oh, wait, thank you. We can use all the help we can get.
That's right. One more, yes.
I know how it feels. I just broke 500.
Nice.
Take a drink.
Jersey Devil.
But yeah, and you know what? I look forward to seeing you guys this year again in Whitehall. If you guys come up, it'd be great. We'll hang for a little bit. And that's the bird clock, folks. You know what that means. I got that damn bird clock.
Take a drink.
Take a drink. And again, Jersey Devil for those taking a drink tonight. And folks, we'll see everybody Wednesday night with an all-new show, and we'll have a bunch of things to discuss as well. And again, everybody be safe, have a good week, stay healthy, God bless, and of course, keep on squatching. We'll see you all here Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, youtube.com/@SquatchDTV. See y'all.
We thank you for being here with us on Squatch-D TV. If you haven't taken the time yet, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And oh yes, hit that notification bell too. We don't want you to miss anything. If you really like our content, you should consider becoming a member, and it's really inexpensive and a great way to support not only the show, but honest Bigfoot research. Everyone have a great week. Be safe and God bless. We will see you all here next time on Squatch-D TV. Keep on squatching.